Hello friends, it's Pride Month again. In this one, we're going back to what I wasn't able to do in 2022, make Pride themed animals. It was actually kind of irresponsible to take this project up because of some other stuff that I had to get done, and recording every detail of these guys wasn't my top priority. This script also took a while to write. I tried to be accurate, but if I get anything correct, then please correct me in the comments. I'm going by my plans from 22 about how to approach each of them. Each will be designed on an LGBTQ+ Moge flag, more than likely the most common known of each identity, and their eyes, colors, pendants, and badges are going to make the pride flag. They don't have too much rhyme or reason why any flag got the eye colors that they did. Many were just to stand out from their flag in some way. The same goes for the bases that I used. I will say that I had to fudge some of the species because of the bases that I've used since the initial plans, so there are a few repeats here. I'm sorry about that. Before I forget, here's a disclaimer that I'm going to be using the Q word in place of the phrases LGBTQ+ and Moge. It's a term that not everyone in these communities is comfortable with, and while I completely understand why, I personally want it to be interpreted here as an umbrella term for everyone that is not cisgender and or heterosexual. I do not mean it in any kind of negative light, but I do want you to know that I'm going to say queer henceforth in the video. If you want any more information about any specific identity in this video, I would strongly suggest going to people with that identity first for a real life account of what it's like, above something like a medical or news article, since I don't know what kind of references those things use. I'll give you any other warnings when or if we need them with these signals. Off camera, I took off a good enough amount of the factory paint with 100% acetone, which can apparently chew through nitrile gloves. I also dabbed on a few layers of white paint with a cosmetic sponge to get a consistent base color for them all. The tails were all made last year out of Sculpey Ultralight. Here's what they look like right now. To be transparent, I am going to paint these in real life by the color that I'm using, but the video is showing them as individuals. I also did as many of the details all together when they were mostly done, so if there are any inconsistencies, that's why. First up, we have life red eyes. This one is going to be the Genderfluid flag. Genderfluid, as you may guess, is the fluidity of gender. This can be in either gender expression or identity. A person may identify themselves as masculine aligned at one point in their life, female aligned at another, and genderless at yet another, or may go by completely different genders. These times can be for either very short or very long periods of time in a person's life. Consistency of gender is of no worry for people that identify as gender fluid, and it is typically considered under the multigender and non-binary umbrellas. For people that aren't sure if they are comfortable with their assigned gender, exploring different genders may help find that this is the identity that fits best. This is a quote from the Genderfluid page on Wikipedia. The Genderfluid pride flag was designed by J.J. Poole in 2012. The pink stripe of the flag represents femininity, the white represents lack of gender, purple represents mixed gender or androgyny, black represents all other genders, and blue represents masculinity. I really like the color combination that the main Genderfluid flag uses. I wanted them all to be really strongly shown in all of these, but particularly as long stripes on this one, so that's why I went with a skunk for this one. This is Meadow the skunk's head on Treasure the cat's body. Side note, I went in with purple first, and I did it before I masked out the eyes, which was something that I noted to do about 2 minutes before that first paint stroke. So this is the only one without masks on their eyes. Later on in the project, it may seem like I went a little bit crazy with the masking, but this paint was honestly being a little fragile to outside forces, even when there weren't any. This particular pet didn't have a lot of chipping, but the paint was getting almost dirty or painted over when it was just sitting around, and I don't want to have to repaint parts of it again. I did up the flowers on them in yellow and green to include the colors that are used in other pride flags to represent non-traditional genders. I should be clear, gender doesn't equal sex or sexuality. Anybody of any sex or sexuality can identify as one gender or another, and while the terms for their attraction may change depending on a person's current gender identity, the actual attraction doesn't. Usually. I'll explain more later at this time point. As with most gender-related stuff, Genderfluid falls under the category that we're doing on this next pad, which is Healing Orange Eyes, who will be the trans flag. Trans is a prefix that means across or beyond. In queer communities, it can be used as a reference to a person's sex or gender, but doesn't necessarily need to mean both at the same time. For example, somebody that was born with one set of genitals can be using hormones to transition into a body that actually represents who they really are, and might not fit all of the qualifiers to be just one sex at a specific time. A person born with ovaries wouldn't have menstrual cycles if they have been taking testosterone for a few years. Again, trans can be sex, gender, either or both depending on the individual. Whatever the case, trans people take steps in their lives to feel comfortable with themselves and their bodies. It takes incredible courage to admit this identity to even oneself, much more so to be out to anyone else. The colors are light blue, light pink, and white. The blue is the traditional color for the people that are assigned as male at birth. The pink is the traditional color for people that are assigned as female at birth. And the white represents anything in between or beyond those two concepts, including people that are transitioning, people with non-traditional gender identities, and even intersex people. It was designed by Monica Helms. I'll be frank, designing this one was interesting. The base that I used, which is Bippity the Pony, was designed with these colors already. Her hair is pink and her accessories are blue. I obviously needed to do something different. I thought to make the coat some kind of combination, but having the hair be the leftover colors seemed like a cop-out. I couldn't shake how much I liked the white coat, and I thought that having the mane and hooves be mixes of pink and blue would be okay. I thought to have some of the bows be lavender, like from one iteration of the trans flag, but apparently that is an intersex flag designed by Natalie Fox. But that works better for me because I can use the gold from the common intersex flag, the one by Intersex International, as the colors for the accessories. Hopefully that makes up for not even mentioning intersex people in my last Pride video, and hopefully this custom isn't too derivative of that one. The base doesn't have a pendant, so I painted the earrings to be just like them. After that is Sunlight Yellow Eyes, who is going to be the bi flag. Bi is a prefix that refers to the simultaneous attraction to the same and opposite genders, typically men and women. The last two pets were gender identities that went beyond this binary that the prefix stems from. However, this was one of the three primary attractions that were recognized by a mass audience, the other two being hetero and homo, of course. If it were the case that an individual seemed to be partially hetero and partially homo, though the level of attraction in any regard did not need to be equal among the genders the person is attracted to, bi people can have preferences. Historically, there's always been bisexuality. Obviously, all of these identities have existed, it's just the names that are new. There is a plethora of depictions of hetero and homo relationships between people of all walks of life in cultures from all over the world. The actual concepts and terms are more recent, the term bisexual coming from a similar biological expression as asexual. They meant it as a synonym for hermaphrodite, so the organism would have both female and male reproductive parts. I'm just going to say bisexual here, but know that I mean both sexual and romantic attractions. Bisexuality is a form of polysexuality, which is an attraction to more than one gender. Being such an old term, bisexual is sometimes used as an umbrella term that is very close to polysexual, I would say. It can mean different things depending on who you ask, and some of those answers developed into some of the identities I'm going to talk about later. The colors of the flag are pink, purple, and blue. The pink represents same gender attraction, the blue represents opposite gender attraction, and the purple represents attractions to multiple genders. The flag was designed by Michael Page. The base for this one is Windflower the Raccoon. This one was specifically chosen to be the base that I used for the bi flag because, well, bi people seem to love raccoons. If there was a frog Princess Palace pet, then I might have had a harder choice to make, but there isn't, so the raccoon makes the cut. Actually, I also chose the raccoon for the bi flag because of the raccoon characters you see in the furry fandom. I've considered myself part of the fandom since 2008 or 9, and from what I've seen of raccoons, they're actually pretty popular. Regardless of what you think the furry fandom is about, you can't deny that there are a lot of queer people in the fandom. I just figured that people that know the fandom would think it matches. But I'm pretty sure that bi people just like raccoons. This base has the character wearing a little shawl thing on its shoulders that I didn't remove. I don't want it to be the same colors, so I'll do it up in the 6 gay flag colors. This one also didn't have a pendant, but it did have some weird gem thing on it, so I painted that yellow. Next up is Nature Green Eyes, who is the Aromantic flag. The one with the orange and yellow to stand separate from the Agender flag that you'll see in a bit. Even I was getting confused as I worked on them. I tried to use all of the arrow colors for this one, so I used darker green in the eyes. Aromantic is a term for people that have traditional levels of romanticism in both attraction and expression. While not necessarily a lack of romanticism, the term aromantic refers to people that aren't so solid in their personal relationship with romance as a whole. It's an umbrella term and covers a wide range of identities, all considered part of the aromantic spectrum or arospec. While typically associated with asexuality, these identities are all part of a person's romantic identity and have no bearing on their sexual attractions, nor does it reflect their ability to have meaningful relationships that don't involve romance, such as platonic and familial relationships. The term aromantic covers very many identities, and I'll list some that are from the Aoria website here. I'm sorry if I mispronounce any of them. Agororomantic is somebody that likes the idea of romantic relationship but doesn't want to participate in one. A liquoromantic is somebody that expresses romantic attractions only under very specific circumstances. A micus romantic is romantic attraction to someone that you have a close platonic relationship with, which is similar to demi-romantic. Apothe-romantic describes someone who does not at all experience romantic attraction and is actually romance repulsed. Cato-romantic is someone that previously had romantic attraction but no longer experiences it, usually due to trauma. Caste-romantic is the total indifference to romantic attraction. Cupio-romantic is when someone wants a romantic relationship but doesn't actually experience romantic attraction. Dread-romantic is an aeroflux orientation characterized by extreme anxiety and dread at the thought of romantic relationships. Idem-romantic is a lack of distinction between romantic and platonic feelings for someone. Impla-romantic is someone that doesn't feel confident in the aerospec label. Proto-romantic is romantic attraction to a stranger that dissipates when they become more familiar with them. It seems like a reverse of demi-romantic, which is a romantic attraction that develops after knowing them for a while. Neuroromantic is the difference in romantic attraction based on one's neurodivergence. Again, these are only some of the identities that are considered aromantic types of attraction. There are many more, and they are all determined by specific instances where a person develops romantic feelings, if they have any at all. The website again is aromanticism.org, and the community is called Aurea. If you're curious about any of this, I'd highly recommend looking through that website. I like to try to incorporate both standard aromantic flags when I do these things. The original flag was proposed by the National Coalition for Aromantic Visibility and had these colors. Green for the opposite of romanticism, yellow like the flowers that you get for friends, orange for gray romantics, and black for alloromantic people that reject traditional romanticism. The more common one, designed by Cameron Whimsy, has these colors. The darker green is for aromanticism, the lighter green for the aro spectrum, the white is for various platonic relationships, the gray is for gray romantics, and the black is for the sexuality spectrum, which is of course different than romanticism. Following that one is Serenity Blue Eyes. This one is going to be genderqueer. Genderqueer is what it sounds like, a queer or odd gender. It's used as an umbrella term. While the term non-binary is often associated with the term genderqueer, they don't necessarily mean the same thing. Non-binary is an identity that goes beyond the standard societal binary of male and female, but genderqueer doesn't have to. It includes identities like bigender, demigender, genderfluid, agender, multigenders, and even things like cross-dressing. It encompasses more than just gender identity itself, describing people that express their gender in a way that is considered different than normal. This is one of many identities that questions the very idea of gender as a whole. Part of society, part of the individual, its relationship to a person's physiology, and the ability to be able to accurately express it. I'll be honest, I don't know what my gender would be considered. I was born and raised as a female, but I don't get upset when people call me by masculine pronouns. I mean, I kind of look like a dude, so I understand why they would think that. I haven't been overtly feminine since I was a small child, and even then I was weird. Whether it be my aversion to being seen as weak for being a girl, liking some masculine things, just not following the rules to being a female, or having however many medical and psychological conditions that would affect that, I just don't think about my gender 24/7. It's almost never on my mind and doesn't have an overbearing hold on my life. Sure, there are some things that are affected by being a woman, but they don't have a huge say in my life as a human. At the same time, I don't hate being a woman just because I am one. Would I say I'm genderqueer? I don't know. But it is probably something that you should look into if you have hangups, confusions, or anything like I do if it means more to you than it does to me. A good resource is genderqueerid.com. I feel a little bad about not using more of the purple in this one. I thought painting the bangs in just purple would make me feel better, but it still doesn't seem like enough. As you can see, I also use yellow in this custom, even though it's not part of the genderqueer flag. Unbeknownst to Marilyn Roxy, who designed the flag, it turned out very similar to a British turf symbol, which is just their suffragette flag. Disgusting people, really. The lavender is a symbol of the queer community at large. The white completely reflects the white of the trans flag, and the forest green is an inverse color of lavender, apparently. I used yellow because it's another color used in pride flags that symbolizes gender ambiguity in identities. Throw a yellow stripe in the current genderqueer flag and you no longer have to share with a bunch of repulsive bigots. It's just a suggestion. Next we have Spirit Purple Eyes, who is poly. Poly is yet another umbrella term. The prefix means several or many, and the identity belongs to people that are attracted to multiple sexes, genders, and romanticisms. Identities like bi and pan are examples of poly identities. Please don't confuse poly attractions for polyamorous, as the latter means having several consenting partners at the same time. This custom is the polysexual flag. People that identify as poly are attracted to several identities, but not necessarily all of them. For example, a person could be attracted to people on one half of a gender spectrum, but not the other half. That person might like females, demigirls, trans femmes, and androgens, but not males, demi-boys, or trans masks. Another poly person could be attracted to NBs, agendered people, and androgens, but neither male nor female. People that are poly have at least any two identities that they are attracted to, and can be attracted to all identities, but don't have to be. For this one, I'm using Sultan the Tiger's head and Rouge the Cat's body. I mentioned before that Sultan is a surprisingly common PPP to come across, and one that gives me very, very little inspiration, so I've had a bunch for years now. I would have used a full Sultan on this one, but my friend wanted another custom to use a Sultan body, so I had a head that I didn't know what to do with. This is the only Rouge that I've come across, but her body isn't really interesting. I would have chosen a better base for this custom, but I didn't want to waste any other ones, as I don't know if I'm going to buy any more PPPs for customs. I don't think anybody likes them but me, and I only like them for their size and cartooniness. The colors on this one came out pretty good, I think. It seems to me the digital versions of the poly flag that you see are different tones than other pride flags use. I don't know if this was intentional, but it at least makes it look interesting. In the flag, the colors represent attraction to different genders. Pink is for females, green is for non-binary people, and blue is for males. It was designed by this Tumblr user. Now we've got brown eyes representing the ACE flag. This one was specifically chosen because brown means inclusivity, and some people don't include the lack of sexuality, romantic attraction, or gender as part of the LGBTQ+ community, but they are. ACE just because it was the first one that I found out about. I'm going to be talking about sex and sexuality in this one. Asexuality is the lack of sexual attraction to others. Like arrows, aces exist on a spectrum that doesn't exclusively mean that they do not ever experience sexual attraction. A lack of attraction in one manner does not mean that the individual is incapable of having other meaningful relationships, including romantic relationships. It doesn't necessarily mean that they lack libido, desire for physical intimacy, or enjoyment of sexual activities either, but it might. Like everyone else in the world, the degree to which a person is okay with any of these things is dependent on the individual that you're asking. Not everyone likes ice cream. Asexuals don't usually have a desire to have sex with the people that they are otherwise attracted to. Asexuality is a spectrum like aromanticism is. Many of the types of attractions on the spectrums have a romantic version and a sexual version, so if you hear any prefixes that I mentioned earlier, that's why. Some identities on the ACE spec include agosexual, cubiosexual, demisexual, phrasexual, graysexual, lithosexual, and apothosexual, the last one being a term for asexuals that are sex repulsed. Many asexuals tag along another prefix to designate the people that they are otherwise romantically or aesthetically attracted to, like bisexual and homoasexual. While aromanticism may be easier to hide in a relationship, as many relationships have a monogamous intention, asexuals may find it difficult to keep their partners completely satisfied with the relationship. While not all aces dislike sex, there are many ace individuals that do and find it hard to want to be intimate with their partners. In some relationship, this causes strain to the point of divorce, and yet others to less than consensual sex, including rape. There are many places that have anti-ace laws that can even require sexual consummation for a marriage to be valid and legally binding, or do not recognize things like rape from a partner spouse, which of course goes beyond just the asexual community. It's reasons like this that I'm always certain to put an importance on talking about asexuality. If you want more information about asexuality, the ACE spec, or are asexual and want to connect with your community, then look into Avon and asexuality.org. The flag was designed by the user Stand Up from Avon. The black in the ACE flag stands for asexuality. The gray is for gray and demisexuals. The white is for allies and the partners of asexual people, and the purple stands for community. After that, we need black eyes, which is going to be pan. The black stripe in the progress flag is for diversity, and the prefix pan means all. It doesn't get more diverse than all. Pan people are attracted to others of all genders, regardless of what gender they are. In other words, pan people find somebody attractive for being attractive, and don't mind any other identities that person may have. It's the end of the polyspectrum of attraction because it includes everyone, but is an identity that is related to or falls under the bi umbrella. Obviously, it doesn't mean that every pan person is attracted to everyone, it just means that they have the ability to be. People that are attracted to others because of the gender that they are fall into the omni identity, which is a little bit different than the pan identity. There are a lot of discussions on the relationship between the bi identity and the pan or poly identity. I'm not going to discuss any points here because that's honestly going to take too long. At the end of the day, an identity is a personal thing that comes from a lifetime of knowing yourself and learning about different ways that people express their attractions and genders. Somebody that identifies as bi might not have any different attractions than somebody that identifies as pan. The only difference between those two people is how they decide to label themselves. On a personal level, meaning that I'm not speaking for everyone or even on an explicitly informed level, pan to me means the openness of the heart. It means that there isn't any identity that would prevent me from being attracted to someone. I feel like I'm able to love somebody just because they are who they are, and nothing else matters besides that. To an extent. The pan community doesn't include paraphilic attractions in its identity because, like I've said before, pedophiles aren't people, and pans aren't about bestiality either. In the flag, pink means attraction to female-aligned people, blue is attraction to male-aligned people, and yellow represents attraction to people of any other gender. It was designed by Jasper Varney, who might have some controversy behind them. I don't know, I saw it mentioned on the Wikia page. Now is pink eyes, not the condition, who is non-binary. Non-binary people identify themselves as a gender outside of the societal standard male-female binary. This can mean that they're somewhere near it or something else entirely. Many genderqueer identities can fall under the non-binary umbrella as well, and all of them can classify as transgender, as the genders don't correlate with the individual's birth sex. Androgyny seems to be almost expected of non-binary people, but a non-binary person doesn't need to express themselves as someone that is just a combination of or in between what a man and a woman would be. Genders that fluctuate, are partial, are several at once, and don't exist are all included in the non-binary label. People that are non-binary can go by any pronouns that they prefer, so if you know somebody that identifies as non-binary, it's best to ask them personally what words they would like you to use when referring to them. Neopronouns get a bad reputation, but they're used so that people can feel comfortable with themselves and how they're seen. I mean, if you call any regular man or woman by the opposite gender's pronouns and they get upset, then you'll show them why it's important that we use these words. The yellow in the flag represents people with a gender beyond a binary spectrum. White is for people with several genders. Purple is for people that do have a gender somewhere around a traditional binary spectrum. And black is for people that don't have a gender. It was designed by Kai Rowan. I chose to give this custom pink eyes because the pink on the original milk flag stands for sex. And I suggested the same for the Progress Pride, but more so in its relationship to gender, as the Progress flag's pink is part of the trans flag. Non-binary people can be any physiological sex, including intersex. Gender doesn't have to correlate with sex whatsoever, and people that identify as non-binary go beyond the notions of the ones that come from these two common genders. My friend wanted me to use Snowpaw the snow leopard's head and Sultan's body, I think because it gives the pet a better body type. I was a little disappointed to use Snowpaw like this, but I like my friend more than I like my customs. It would have been a good type combination if I were to keep the Repaint feminine, since there needs to be more less than twiggy feminine toys to work with, but this is a non-binary custom, so that doesn't matter. Then we have Turquoise eyes in the Agender flag. This flag is pretty similar to the Aromantic flag, but the design will be different enough, hopefully. Agender is typically a classification for people that do not identify with any gender, but includes people that don't align with other genders or have undefined genders, people that are gender neutral, and people that choose not to label their gender. Other terms related to agender are neutrosis, genderless, and gender-free. Many people consider agender people to be non-binary, genderqueer, and trans, but only the agender individuals should decide whether they feel that those identities align with their agender identity. Many of these identities on the A spectrum get pushed to the wayside of queer identities because they are a lack of gender, sexuality, and romanticism, but all of them are valid parts of the LGBTQ+ and mo-gay communities. Agender people don't have a need to express a gender and can choose pronouns and to dress in manners that are either male, female, a combination, or neither. As with all other genders, any specific identity has no bearing on sexual or romantic orientations. The primary flag's colors have these meanings. Black and white are both for the absence of gender, the gray is for people with partial or semi-genders, and the green is for non-binary genders. Turquoise in the milk flag stands for art. At least for me, not having to worry about gender and gender expression gives me more time to create art. Is that a good enough reason? Should I have not mentioned it? I don't know. It's Pumpkin again. This one also has green hair and black-gray gradient ears. I figure that this one and the Arrow one are probably siblings, but that's honestly not an excuse to have them look so similar. I mentioned that these customs were designed last year, and that I was on a crunch on another project that I'm doing right now, so I put the time in designing something new and different into getting the script written. I don't like that I went with this, but I'm trying to learn to be honest with myself about the projects that I do. I do like this one, and I only just saw the alternative flags recently, which would have helped distinguish this one, but the best I can do here is say, I'm sorry if I'm not doing any justice here for the agender flag. Finally, we have White Eyes, who is, of course, going to be the queer flag. I think I'm going to do a very, very light gray for the iris and pupil just so it exists and isn't just a blank slate. Like I said before, queer is a term that not everybody is okay with. It's been used as a derogatory term for decades now, so it's understandable that it might make some people uncomfortable. For people that identify as queer, they use the term as a general word to say that they are not heterosexual and or not cisgender, so it encompasses both sexual orientation and gender identity. It's sometimes used in the names of groups that fight for the rights of people that are, well, queer. Within the last 30-ish years, it's been used in a defiant manner, fighting back against the times that we've been called queer by people that are trying to hurt us. Besides that, some people think that the term divides the community based on something or other, but I don't personally think that it should be perceived that way when it's used by people of the LGBT+ and mo-gay communities. But again, that's just a personal opinion. The queer flag was designed by this DeviantArt user. The black and white on the flag represent the asexual and aromantic spectrums, the blues and pink represent same-sex and gender attraction, and the green and orange represent genderqueer identities. I suggested some different meanings for the flag's colors, which are as follows. Black for diversity, light blue for male-aligned people, blue for attraction to male-aligned people, green for attraction to genderqueer people, white for unity, yellow for being genderqueer aligned, pink for attraction to female-aligned people, and light pink for female-aligned people. This one is Sultan the Tiger again. All of the colors of the flag had me tied up for a while designing this one. A lot of them were really similar to this one with the colors flipped around. You already know that I like the pink, but having the majority of the body color be any one of them from the flag felt like I wasn't giving enough representation to the other colors. I don't really like that I used half of them as only stripes, and I'm pretty sure that I meant to paint the white area in a different color, but this is what I turned out with. I tried to make up for it by painting the actual flag, or well, very close to it, on the tail twice. I really like how the tail came out. It looks like a cool sweater to me. Here are all 11 repaints that I did for this. I think they all turned out pretty cute. Again, it was a little irresponsible of me to take up this project at the time that I did, but I really wanted to get this representation in, even though I maybe should have left it for a little bit later in the year. But I did get it done, and they all came out pretty good, I think. So I don't know that it was a total waste of time or anything. Again, I'm sorry that I used the same base for the extended A-spec group, but I didn't really know what else to do to accurately represent them. Do you have a favorite out of any of these? Do any of them represent your flag? Do you think I could have done better with some of them? Be honest with me. Let me know what you think about them. Let me know if I got any of the information wrong. And let me know if you have any ideas for what I should do for next year, because I don't know what to do. I just know that I want to do something that represents the community, you know? It's important to me. She just don't shut up, does she?